Good afternoon. Dan O'Shea, Chief of Police, Rockford, and to my right, the Winnebago County State's Attorney, Marilyn Height-Ross, who you all know. Today we wanted to hold a press conference to reach out to the community members in the city of Rockford. We are in the middle of what I termed last week as a crisis of gunfire and violence in this city. As we spoke about previously, the State's Attorney and I and other law enforcement members in the community, we've had a severe uptick of gun crime, specifically in shootings in Rockford, since March. And it's at the breaking point, and it's 2 more murders over this weekend. While we've done great for 3 years, 2020 since March has proven to be very, very challenging for the city of Rockford. People are firing guns at an extraordinary rate on a daily basis. You know, we've had too many murders, we've had too many shootings. We wanted to show a couple quick maps of homicides. The State's Attorney will talk about the homicide victims. But first map, this is the homicides we've had in 2020 so far this year. And obviously 1 is too many, this is way too many. And we're only in August. And the gunfire is not slowing down. And the, I guess the dispute between certain street gangs is not getting any better. And they are responsible for a vast majority of our murders this year. And we need the public's help to stem the tide of this violence. That the gunfire is out of control. I will say that again so everybody understands that. We are well over 2,000 rounds or casings recovered since March. That's just from shootings. The next map I want to show, this is all the people that have been struck by gunfire. Not houses, not cars. This is where someone has been hit by gunfire in the city of Rockford for this year. And that's not counting the murder victims. So every one of those dots is another person getting hit, and another person whose family and friends have to wonder whether or not they're going to live. More people being transported to hospitals. And some of them, while some of them are in the game, so to speak, and are the intended targets, if you will, of the people that are shooting at them, some of them are not. Some of them are just random people who happen to be out on the street. And this needs to stop. The violence has to stop. The last slide I'll talk about real quick, which is beyond disturbing, that's shots fired in the city of Rockford so far this year. Every one of those dots indicates a location of shots being fired where we've recovered casings and verified shots fired. What it doesn't show you is some of the incidents where we're recovering 20, 30, 40, 50, 70 casings at particular incidents. And even more disturbing beyond that is it's not just handgun rounds anymore, it's rifle rounds. Rifle rounds go through walls, they go through car doors, they go through police officers' ballistics vests. Rifle rounds go a long way before they stop. And they're not going to stop until they're ready to, and unfortunately they've hit people before that. We were talking, or I said something last week, you know, it's just a matter of time with the amount of gunfire going off that another innocent person is killed for doing nothing more than sitting in their house, sitting in their apartment, driving in their car, and we need the public's help to reach out to us to help us solve these cases and get these individuals off the street. Way too much gunfire. A couple slides, just some of the guns that we're just recovering. They vary shapes, sizes, colors. People are now making mechanisms with 3D printers to try and modify weapons, and that's another big concern. Plastic guns, 3D modeled guns that are out on the internet. This is just August 1st through August 20th, those guns right there. And you see the extended magazines, you see the rifle. I assure you those aren't the only guns. It was just a quick picture we wanted to use for reference. The amount of firearms around, I'm sorry, the amount of rounds that these guns can carry and they're shooting it's just, it's critical we get them off the street. And I can't stress this enough. And we're reaching out for the public, trying to get the public engaged more and more. We need you to push the message. I realize there's a pandemic, and I realize there's individuals that are upset with the police across the country, and there's a lot of other issues facing our community, COVID and joblessness and schools not being in session. They're all very important. But this is an absolute crisis, and we need to deal with it. With that, I'll ask State's Attorney Height Ross to come up and speak a few words on it.
So as the chief said, we have been monitoring the extreme gun violence in the community for the last several months. And what we've noticed during the COVID pandemic is that people are not staying home. In fact, they're out and they're committing violent crimes within our community. And let's just be very clear, gunfire kills, gun violence kills. And it's beyond just killing one person, it affects everyone. As you can see displayed on the map, in March, we had 3 killings. Trevon Laird family, Antonio Warren family, and the Stephen Delorme family. In April, we had the David Foley family. In May, we had the family of Philip Trammell, Clifton Totten, Larry Brown, Cameron Dunlap, and a 19-year-old male victim. In June, we had the family of Jadale Lehman and Sherman Wilkes. In July, we had the family of Jamiros Reed, Deontay Chapman, Christopher Lerma. And in August, which is not over yet, and we have 7 more days before September enters, we've had 5. Lamarius Hollingshed family, Christopher Swirls family, Eric Elliott family, Jamirian Booz family. And the last 2, the Elliott family and the Booz family, just within the last 3 days. And like the chief said, we did want to address the community because it's just a matter of time before we have to add another family to that list. And we don't want to do that. And we don't think anyone in the community wants to do that. You know, when families should be celebrating birthdays, other family celebrations, anniversaries, on hot summer days, they are visiting the funeral home and the cemetery to make arrangements for their loved ones who have been taken. Every year, my office has what we call a homicide survival memorial. And this memorial we do annually for those families who have lost loved ones to violence. And this year, unfortunately, I have to add more names to the homicide survival group. It's a group that no one signs up for. You don't volunteer for it. You're just interjected into this homicide survival group because you have been unfortunate enough to have lost a loved one to violence in the community. This year, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are having the Homicide Survival Memorial virtually. The slide is displaying the link in the website for the community. And what I've done, because it's very important that these families understand that we remember their loved ones and that they're not forgotten. We've got family members who have provided consent forms for us to have visual pictures of their loved ones so we could continue to have the Homicide Victims Memorial this year virtually. And we invite people in the community to tune in and see, unfortunately, the epitaph of these families who have become members of the Homicide Survival Memorial Group. And if you are able to see the virtual Homicide Memorial, I hope it pricks your heart. I hope it pricks your heart like it pricks mine to say, no more. We don't want any more families becoming a member of this group. We know something, we saw something, and we are going to share this information with law enforcement because we can't do it alone. And as the chief said, you know, I understand as state's attorney that I am leading that office during a time when there's a mistrust of the criminal justice system, especially by people of color. There are legitimate concerns that myself as well as law enforcement want to engage and address. But we also have to address the violence in our community. At the same time, we have to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic that has impacted the community substantially financially. And so, again, this is my plea to all of you to help us keep the Winnebago County community safe. And we cannot do it alone. We need your help. We need you to join us in this fight against this crisis. We have several going on concurrently, but against this particular crisis where gun violence is taking people out of our community. Their lives are being lost. They can no longer be productive in our community, so it's not just a loss to the families, it is a loss to the entire community because they are never able to reach their full potential. Thank you.
That was just the message we were trying to get out today. If there's any quick questions on any of this, we can answer them. We can't obviously speak on any particular cases, but the gunfire, it is a very, very big problem in the community right now, and we need people to step up and start providing answers and pointing us toward the right direction of the suspects.
Chief, the last time we had a conversation like this was in May outside the Waylo gas station. And I think it's the most fired up I've seen you in a long time on this job. You, at the same time, you did like you're doing now. You're calling out to the people of Rockford to come and put a stop to this. If they weren't convinced then, why should they be convinced now to come and try to put an end to this?
Well, I'd have to count the exact number of incidents since May, since the last time they made a request. It's gone up. It continues to go up. To the state's attorney's point, we continue to have more families fall victim to being part of homicide, the surviving homicide families. And Rockford, it's a big city, but it's a small town. People know who's doing what, and people want their kids to be safe. And the amount of gunfire, they want your parents to be safe. I won't even say kids. I mean, I always think about the little kids being shot accidentally. It could be an 80-year-old grandmother who's going to get shot, or anyone else. The amount of gunfire that's flying around right now, it's indiscriminate. And people who live here need to step up. A lot of them have. And I appreciate all the people who have provided information to us. But we need more information. We need more people to get involved and more people to provide information to us, because we've got to get it off the street. There's the amount of gunfire. Someone just told me their son came back from doing a tour overseas, and their unit probably didn't expend the amount of rounds that we've counted in this city since March. And that says a lot. So, any other comments or questions?
Chief, that said, where are they getting these guns from?
A lot of the guns, we find that have been stolen or taken in burglaries, and some of them are bought. The ATF, our ATF task force people work on straw purchases and that kind of stuff. So there's some that are bought illegally and change hands, but a lot of them are stolen. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're a legal gun owner, make sure you lock your stuff up in a safe that can't just be carried out the door, or don't leave your guns just laying under your bed, because when your house gets broken into, we just lose more guns to the street, and there's a plethora of guns. And Rockford's not alone. I mean, if you look across the country, gun violence in city, urban areas has gone up, homicides have gone up. A lot of it is because of the COVID pandemic and joblessness and people, kids not in school, and people being out and about and seeing each other. So Rockford's not on an island when it comes to that, but we are on an island when it comes to the amount of gunfire we're having. But the guns, they come from all over, and they get their hands on them, and we recover them. And one gun, we'll find one gun when we get it. They run the ballistics or through the Niven machines. One gun will be responsible for 5, 6, 10, 20 different incidents when we get them. So, people know who are bringing the guns in. Give us a call anonymously. Call Crime Stoppers. But let us get the upper hand and stop the violence before another innocent person gets killed.
Are a lot of the shootings and the homicides, are these random or are these targeted? Do you think this is all gang related?
A good chunk of our homicides this year have been gang related in some way, shape, or form, or gang members known to us. But whether or not the motive of that particular shooting is strictly gang, or it could be drug, or it could be, who their partners are. I mean, the motives always come out during the trials, so we don't say that, but we're familiar with two groups that are currently having arguments over what we don't know, and it'll come out whenever we make arrests, I guess, during the trial. But gang members and drug dealers are responsible for a lot of it, but a lot of times they don't hit what they're shooting or trying to shoot, and then we have innocent people getting hit, or people driving cars up and down the streets, as we've seen over the last couple weeks. Cars are driving back and forth, and they're getting hit by gunfire from other people driving cars shooting at each other. So that the reason shouldn't be the cause, or what people should be worried about. Whether they're targeted or not, they're missing their target and they're hitting somebody innocent, and that's a big problem.
And those 2020, the homicides, is that Winnebago County or Rockford?
Those are just Rockford City, and I'm not sure how many have happened in the region or the county.
Okay.
I'd have to ask the sheriff. And rest assured, Sheriff Caruana, the state police, all our surrounding municipalities, as well as the Fed agencies we have here, everybody's working on it. It's not just Rockford Police. It's the county, it's the state, it's the FBI, ATF, DEA. Everybody's involved. But we need the public's help more
Those
than
were just for Rockford?
Those are just Rockford members.
Gotcha. Okay.
And when you mentioned these two groups, and I think you've kind of alluded to this, but you're attributing a lot of this spike this year in Rockford to these two groups then?
Yes. And then there's other individuals that we know are involved that we, obviously we can't until we catch people and are able to charge them. But two groups are causing a recent rift and a rise in our shootings and our murders. All right. Well, thank you. Any other comments?
Just one. I just want to be clear that whether the person is a gang member or not does not deter from the value of their life when they are taken by gunfire. So I just want everyone to understand that. And as the chief said, once that bullet is fired, it's on a path. It's going to strike someone. It may not hit the intended target. But all victims of violence, their families deserve justice, and that's why we are asking the community for help. The question was, what makes you think they'll help you now? They haven't helped you before. Well, we have had people that have come forward, and we have been able to charge individuals and hold them accountable for murders and shootings within the community. So we will not be deterred just because there's been an uptick in the violence. We will continue to be tenacious and asking for assistance from the public and investigating these violent crimes. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Well, do what we don't do our system. So our data from last year is a different system on the current year. So it'll be a while before we pull stats from this year to do our last year. Just the murder